So here we are. Do I have slides? We have slides. That's like we have liftoff, isn't it? All right. So tonight I'm going to give you some of the new information on the physiology of forgiveness, which is absolutely amazing. When we got this research, I always like to talk about new things, new brain function research, because I love everything about the brain. But I couldn't talk about it for a few months because as I worked through the research, I realized I had some work to do. And it's probably not a good idea to stand up and talk about something until you've worked through it. So I'll tell you a couple of the things that I had to work through. Tomorrow morning we'll talk about the really emerging research on the brain and spirituality. It turns out the brain is not innately religious. The brain is innately spiritual. And so there's some interesting research on that. And then Monday night we're going to talk about the new brain scan modality called DTI, diffusion tensor imaging, that has shown how differently the male brain and the female brain are wired. I mean, we knew we were different, right? We are more alike than we are different, but we are different. And this new research is just fun. You'll have a lot of fun with it. So, anyone who has worked as a counselor knows that people who can't forgive usually struggle with relationships. It's not pretty. But there's new research that shows that's not all they struggle with. You may have heard the name Dr. Herbert Benson. He's an internationally renowned cardiologist. Apparently, so the story goes, he was reading a scripture in the Bible, and I'll show you the one he was reading in a bit. And it prompted him to start looking at what happens to the brain and the body when people don't forgive. And he has coined the term, the physiology of forgiveness. And this is what he says. There's something called the physiology of forgiveness. Being unable to forgive other people's faults is harmful to your health. And it's surprising that nobody has sort of stumbled on that until now. I want to start by pointing out what forgiveness is not, because research is showing people really don't understand forgiveness. They try to do what they can't do, and they don't do what they could do. So first of all, it's not condoning bad behavior. You do the crime, you do the time. It does not absolve people for their behaviors, their actions. It does not waive your right to compensation. You know, if somebody runs into your car, you have the right to be compensated for that. You may forgive them, but that doesn't mean you don't take the compensation. It doesn't mean choosing to remain in an abusive situation or going back into one. And that's something every church on the planet, I think, is struggling with. What we have learned, take for example, a woman is being battered in her home. Doesn't mean men aren't battered, but more women are battered. So one day she gets battered so badly that she has some broken bones and serious bruises, and we take her out of the home and we put her in a safe house and help her recover from her injuries. 3 or 4 months later, she is ready to leave. And unless we can help her understand that forgiveness doesn't mean going back into an abusive relationship, where 75% of the time does she go? She goes right back. And the minute you go back, she has just doubled or tripled her risk of being killed. We try to teach them that we have been leased a brain and a body to use on this planet. Now, if you lease a BMW, I don't have a BMW. It's my favorite car, but I don't have one. If you lease a BMW, my neighbor has one, he comes home with this big sheaf of sheets of paper, and it outlines all the things that he has got to do to take care of that car so that when his lease is up and he turns it back in, there won't be a penalty. And believe me, if he looked out the window and saw somebody with a key running it along the side of his leased BMW, he would not sit there and smile and say, "I forgive you, keep doing it." Well, we have been leased a brain and a body on this planet, and we are its custodians. We have no evidence that we'll take it anywhere with us. This is our vehicle for this planet. And because we've also been told that it is the temple of the Holy Spirit, we've got to take another look at how we take care of it. It is not okay to allow anyone, including ourselves, to abuse what has been leased to us. And society in general and churches in particular have a ways to go with that. It doesn't mean that you deny the other person's responsibility for what happened. And it's certainly not vengeance. Have any of you had your DNA done? No? Oh, well, get it done. The other day, I decided to buy a DNA kit, and they sent me the little swab, and you rub it around on the inside of your cheek and get some white blood cells on it and put it in this little tube and mail it off. And then they analyze your DNA, and they're really looking for mutations. You know, when cells multiply and divide, sometimes they don't do it accurately. And so they're looking for your mutations. And then with the bank of hundreds of thousands of mutation patterns, DNA patterns they have, they start looking to see what is yours match. And they'll go back and back and back until all of a sudden your mutation isn't there anymore, so they know that was the start of your line. And then they figure out who you're related to. It's really great fun. I've had half a dozen emails from all over the world from somebody in, oh dear, where did I tell you he lived? Safety something? 4.5 hours south of Brisbane. Coffs Harbour, all right. Well, I have a third cousin that lives in Coffs Harbour. And I'm going to meet him one of these days, hopefully. That'll be the first time I've met anybody that emailed me and said, "Hello, I'm a relative." Haven't invited anybody over yet. But I did find out, for example, that apparently we've got some relatives in Corsica. What's Corsica known for? Vendettas. It's just amazing. They've got entire books written about it now. You know, this family will hate this family, and generation after generation they keep trying to kill each other. And it's interesting to read the interviews. You know, this young man kills a young man in the other family, and they interview him and said, what was the deal with you killing him? Well, our family hates his family. Well, how did that happen? I don't know. When did it start? I don't know. You have no idea, and you're still trying to kill him. Well, that's really brilliant. Well, a lot of people do it at different levels, and it may sort of, you know, eliminate unforgiveness, because if you kill him, you know, he's dead, you don't have to forgive him, so they think. But it's not forgiveness. And we do that to each other on a lesser level. So do you remember your first experience with forgiveness? You might have to think about it for a bit. First time somebody told you you had to forgive somebody, or I can tell you mine. My dad was a preacher, so I'm a preacher's kid. I don't know if I'm a proverbial preacher's kid or not, But I'll tell you, it's not an easy thing being a preacher's kid. Anybody here a preacher's kid? 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. Well, the rest of you have no idea how bad it is. For years, I said it was the worst experience of my entire life, and it probably was, because it didn't matter what church we went to. There were 500 people that knew exactly how the preacher's daughter ought to behave, and they were not reticent to tell me. The problem is none of them agreed, so it's a no-win. As I've gotten older and hopefully a little more mature, it was also probably one of the best examples or experiences of my life. You know, the Adventist Church is interesting because unlike other denominations, we've got connections all around the world. So anywhere I go, I will always meet somebody who knows somebody I know. Talk about 3 degrees of separation. You know, and that's really kind of fun. Well, any of you eldest or only children? Okay, a few more of those. All right. Well, the rest of you aren't going to have any idea what I'm going to say next, but you will. I was an only child for 4 blessed years. It was nice being the only grandchild on both sides of the family, the little princess. Got used to that. And then my parents screwed up and had my brother. He was a boil on the little landscape of my life for a long time. Eventually I did learn to love him, but boy, not for a while. I mean, he just knocked me off my little pedestal. We were not very flush financially. I'd always had a rag doll. Now, I'm not big on dolls particularly. You know, I'd much rather been working in my father's workshop with him, but I did have a doll. And if any of you have had a rag doll, it's not very exciting. You can't even sit it up and can't do anything with it. It's just limp. Well, when I was about 6, a more well-to-do member of the church found out that I never had anything but a rag doll. And this person bought me one of the new dolls. It had a beautiful china head. It had arms and legs made out of that new squishy rubber stuff so that it felt a little bit more like skin. And you could sit it up and it would sit there and not fall over. So I didn't play with it much, but I put it up on the top of my bureau and sat it up there, and I'd look at it every day. Well, we've got little Farquhar aboard now who looked just like my mother. Beautiful child. I don't look like my mother. Look like my father. You know, he wasn't bad looking, but he was not as good looking for a man as my mother was for a woman. And here's this little kid that I didn't want. I was just fine, thank you very much, by myself. And he looks just like my mother, you know, huge blue eyes, curly hair, so on and so forth. And little Farquhar can do no wrong. I remember people coming to visit, and I heard one of them say to my father, "Well, Pastor Taylor, isn't it wonderful now you have a son to carry on your family name?" Okay, I'm 4. I'm thinking, what's this business about a family name? So I says to my father, what do you mean he's carrying on the family name? What does that mean? Well, he says, our family name is Taylor. And he said, eventually you're going to get married and you'll take your husband's name and you won't be Taylor anymore, but your brother will always be a Taylor. And I said, I don't think so. You gave me the name Taylor. I'm not giving up my name. And I didn't. It's amazing what happens when you're little. So one day, after he's about 4 and I'm about 8, I hear this ruckus out in the garage. I go out there, and here's little Farquhar. He is trying to pound a nail into a board. He wasn't using a hammer. What do you suppose he was using? My doll. Whack, whack, whack. Here go pieces of china flying around the garage, and I had a meltdown. I'm not a screamer, but my mother said that, you know, people could have heard me at the other side of the continent. So she comes out and asks what's going on, and I tell her what's going on, and she goes, "Oh, he's just a little boy. He didn't mean to." Of course he meant to. He had to go into my room, pull a chair over to the bureau, climb up, get my doll, climb down, go out to the garage and start whacking away on it. Of course he meant to. And she said, "Well, whether he did or not, you're going to have to forgive him." And I said, "I don't think so." And she said, "Well, Arlene, you can eat when you have forgiven him." 3 days later, I got pretty hungry. And I said, "I forgive you." Okay, I really didn't, but I was hungry, right? So that was my first experience with forgiveness, and it wasn't pretty. So think about your first experience, because all of us have one. Sometimes we buried it. Let's do a couple definitions of forgiveness, and then we'll talk about the health implications. So this one is by Dr. Maricus. How many of you have read 10 Minutes Aloud today? Good. 2 of you. Fabulous. So you must know the research. All right. The research is 10 minutes of reading aloud can help you age-proof your brain and slow down the onset of symptoms of aging. So since only 2 of you have done it, then you can get some reading done with me tonight, and then you need to start that tomorrow. I was lecturing the other day and made that comment, and a lady put her hand up and she says, "Dr. Taylor, I live alone." And I'm thinking, what's she telling me that for? And I said, "Thank you for the information," and kept going. And she goes, "No, I'm telling you, I live alone." So I stopped and I said, "What is it that you want me to know about you living alone?" "Well," she said, "you told us to read 10 minutes a day out loud, and I'm telling you I live alone." I said, "Did I say anything about reading to somebody? I just said read aloud for 10 minutes a day." "Oh," she said, "I couldn't do that. I'd be embarrassed." I said, "Didn't you tell me you live alone?" We are such interesting creatures. And I could not get her to understand that just reading aloud is very stimulating to the brain. You know what a PET scan is? PET, positron emission tomography. It's a way of scanning the brain. Think of my face as a clock. 12, 6, 3, 9, or 9, 3, one of the two. Draw 2 lines, and you got 4 chunks. Each one of those chunks helps us do different things. And PET scans have helped us understand what kind of functions are orchestrated by each chunk. So in one of the PET scan studies, the researchers asked the participant, "Take this paragraph and read it to yourself silently, and we'll watch and see what happens in your brain," because they've injected some radioactive glucose into his vein. And so when the cells in the brain that let you do that function start to work, they screen for glucose, because the brain only has about 10 minutes worth of fuel at any given time, and the blood's got to bring it more. And as the cells start using the glucose that's radioactively tagged shows up like a real pretty color on the screen. And so they were watching the brain as he was reading silently, and a little pinpoint of light in each of those 4 chunks lit up. So we know that to read silently to yourself requires cells in the entire brain, but just a few in each chunk. And so one of the researchers said, I wonder if it would make a difference if we asked him to read the same thing out loud. I said, well, let's try it. It wasn't part of the experiment. So they said, okay, take this same paragraph, now this time read it out loud. So what do you suppose happened? Fireworks is just about it. That's what I like about Australia. You ask a question, somebody actually answers. And this is my 9th trip, and I've been desperately trying to speak like you do. And nothing's happening. I don't have an accent. It's just I keep trying to get one, and nothing happens. Pardon? Keep doing it. I have practiced really hard. I was up at Big Camp a couple years ago, and I said to the audience, okay, I've been working on how to pronounce Australia, because that's how we say it over in America. I said, how does this sound? Australia. They did just what you did. They started laughing, and they said, it's no good. So whatever. All right, so when he read out loud, 80% of those 4 chunks lit up. It's an extremely complex process for the brain to read out loud, because you're looking at the letters and the words, and you're using your mouth and your tongue and your teeth and your larynx to pronounce it, and hopefully you're reading it smoothly with sense. And so it's just amazing. So 10 minutes a day. The rest of you will be starting that tomorrow, right? Tonight works. All right. So read this with me aloud. Forgiveness can be defined as the peace and understanding that come from blaming that which has hurt you less, taking the life experience less personally, and changing your grievance story. So that's one definition. I'll give you a couple. You need to come up with your own definition, so you personalize it. All right, read with me. Forgiveness has everything to do with relieving oneself of the burden of being a victim, letting go of the pain, and transforming oneself from a victim stance to a survivor stance. We'll talk more about that. Do you know the name Valerie Harper? Valerie Harper is a comedian in America who was diagnosed several months ago with supposedly terminal inoperable brain cancer. And she read the research on forgiveness and started getting serious about doing some of those things. She's still alive. It's going to be interesting to see what goes. So read with me what she said. Forgiveness is giving up the wish that things could be different. That's powerful, because many, many people go through life with a huge brick on their shoulder because they wish their childhood had been different, or they wish something else had been different. It's a dead-end street. Okay, here's my definition. It's a little longer, but read with me. Forgiveness involves giving up your right to exact retribution from the individual who hurt or wronged you. You choose to think about something else rather than harbor resentment in working memory. You refrain from repeatedly bringing up the incident to yourself and or others and rehearsing all the details. You move from victim to survivor. Had a man come to see me in my office not too long ago, and he said, I made a huge mistake. He said, I invested some of our money without talking to my wife about it, and I lost all of it. I mean, it was a good chunk. I thought it was a good chunk, like $85,000, something like that. He said, my wife said she forgave me, but every time I so much as look at her crosswise, she's going to serve that incident to me at dinner. And she's going to go over it all again about how awful it was with what I did. That's not forgiveness. I'm sure every one of you have somebody in your life that every time they talk to you, they're rehearsing something bad that happened to them over and over and over again. And you know, who wants to hear it? You know, after you've heard it once, I don't want to hear it again. But the person who's doing the rehearsing is the one that's having the most impact on their health. All right, victim. I was asked to go to Kansas, in the middle of America, and talk to, well, actually it's sort of a self-supporting ministry where people who have been trafficked and got away from that can go there and recover. Several hundred people there. So I'm talking about abuse and recovery and forgiveness. And I noticed that there's a little group of people in the back who their body language doesn't seem very receptive. So afterwards, I said to the person in charge, tell me about that little group of people back there. And she goes, you know, those are people that don't seem to want to recover. All they want to do is rehearse. They like being a victim. I met with them by themselves, and we had a very interesting discussion. They had adopted the persona of victimhood because they thought it made them special. To have been abused and trafficked, they were special. So I had to tell them that you're not special because you've been trafficked. You're not special because you've been hurt. All of us have been hurt. We live in a war zone. That does not make you special. And when you hang on to the victim mindset, you burn up a substance in your brain called norepinephrine. It stops your emotional growth and actually prevents you from recovering. It's ugly. A victim stance involves feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. And now you turn that into everything else that happens in your life. You know, I can't do that, it's hopeless. I can't take care of myself, I'm helpless, and so on and so forth. So the deal is that you got to move from the position of being a victim to one of being a survivor, because that's when you can recover, grow up emotionally, heal, role model how you recover from an injury, and help others. And since I believe that Scripture is a model for everyday living, I can find nothing in Scripture to indicate that Christ, although he was probably injured more than any of us ever will be on this planet, he was never a victim. He was always a survivor. And that's our model. So we need to take a look at that. So the health impact. You're aware, I'm sure, of psychoneuroimmunology, PNI. Is that a word you're all familiar with? Oh, well, you are now. It's a branch of science. It was the first meeting of PNI researchers was probably 1985. And their whole research is to study the effect on the brain, the heart, and the immune system of every thought you think. Because every thought you think changes your neurochemistry and impacts your health. So it will either boost your immune system and keep you healthy, or it will suppress your immune system and make it easier for you to get sick. So when you say, I forgive you, and you really mean it, it's not just because you're hungry. You are basically saying, I choose to be healthy. I want to be healthy. I choose to be healthy. Because the act of forgiving allows the body to turn down the manufacture of catabolic chemicals. What are catabolic chemicals? They're substances in the brain and body that help you in the short term, but in the long term, they actually can destroy brain cells. Substances like cortisol, adrenaline, and so on. Plus, it banishes negative feelings from your mind. People who don't forgive picture that they have an enemy outpost in their brain. And it costs a lot to keep that outpost staffed. And you are using energy that you now no longer have available for healthy living. So when I've talked to people about this, some often say, well, nobody knows I'm not forgiving. And I start laughing because your brain knows and your body knows, and those are the two most important components. So when you are angry, you increase the release of adrenaline and dopamine. 50%, by the way, of all your dopamine. Are you familiar with the word dopamine? Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that is involved with every addictive behavior that's ever been studied, as far as I know. Half of all your dopamine isn't even in your brain, it's in your gut, in your GI tract. So when your brain is upset, and dopamine is what helps make you feel better, and half of it is in your gut, no wonder that you have diarrhea or constipation or upset stomach or ulcers, because things aren't working very well. You can actually become addicted to your own adrenaline and dopamine by rehearsing all of the injuries that have occurred to you. And that's pretty bad, because now all your friends and relatives don't want to hear it anymore. But you're addicted to your own adrenaline and your own dopamine, and the way you get it secreted is by going through all your traumas again. So people need to look at that, because we think of addictions often as, I don't know, shooting up heroin, smoking, drinking, whatever. A lot of people are addicted to their own adrenaline. And you cannot be unforgiving and not be sad. There's this anger, sadness circle that you get embroiled with, and it decreases the level of serotonin in your brain. Serotonin is the substance that allows you not to be depressed. And 90% of that is in your gut. There's such a close connection between your brain, your heart, and your digestive system. So that's one of the reasons that it negatively impacts your health. So this is what Dr. Benson found. I've just given you a summary. If you choose unforgiveness, this is what you can expect based on large sample studies. Increased stress levels and muscle tension. You're expending energy because your muscles are tense, so you don't have it for something else. Increased levels of adrenaline and cortisol. Increased blood pressure and heart rate. So if you've already got a tendency to high blood pressure and you're unforgiving, you're probably down the medication route. Increased risk for depression, heart disease, stroke, and cancer, none of which I'm interested in developing. Suppressed immune system function, which makes it easier for you to catch a cold or the flu, and impaired neurological function, including memory. So you having trouble with your memory? Can't remember who you are? Can't remember who you're partnered with? Take a look at forgiveness. Now, if you choose decisional and emotional forgiveness, two types, and we'll talk about that, this is what Benson finds happens. Healthier relationships, lower blood pressure, sometimes people can even go off their blood pressure medication, less anxiety, stress, and hostility, fewer symptoms of depression, lower risk of alcohol or substance abuse, increased compassion, kindness, and peace, increased mental, physical, and spiritual health. That's huge, absolutely huge. Forgiveness is scriptural, and you all know that, so we really don't need to go through all of this, but I want to point out that it's interesting the way it's worded. For example, if you don't forgive others, your mistakes will not be forgiven. You know, we need to be clear that it doesn't say, well, I'll forgive you and then I want you to forgive others. It says, I'll forgive you after you have forgiven others. I think one of the reasons that people have trouble with this is because many religions really emphasize the way God forgives. Humans are never going to forgive at that level. But that's what they know for forgiveness. And since they think I can't do that, then they sort of just give it all up. Now, this is what Dr. Benson supposedly was reading when he decided to embark on studying forgiveness and its impact on health. Forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases. And he said, I never realized before that there appears to be a link between forgiveness and how healthy you are, which is what started him on his study. So 2 types of forgiveness. The first one is called decisional forgiveness, and many people do that. It basically is a choice to respond differently toward a transgressor. You know, you stop being bitter, you know, you're not resentful, you're certainly not out for revenge. Lots of people do that one. I eventually did that one with my little brother. So I told you that I couldn't even speak about this for a while because the second type of forgiveness is emotional forgiveness. With emotional forgiveness, you are replacing negative and unforgiving thoughts and feelings with those that are positive. Now that is a different stretch. It involves psychophysiological changes to the brain and the immune system, and that's where you get the health benefits. So I decided, good thing I did, to go back and look at some of the things that I thought had been injurious to me, and whether I had forgiven at type 1 and type 2. When I was 13, I was molested by an upstanding member of the church. And I forgave him. Step 1 only. I had no wish for him to be hit by a bus and run over and killed. But I'm here to tell you, if someone had called me up and said, so-and-so just got hit by a bus and he's as flat as a board, I would have went, yes! Couldn't have happened to a better person. Okay, that's not step 2. So I needed to go through and pick out things in my life where I had not done step 2. And I'm very, very thankful I did. Because about 2 months ago, I get a phone call from a girlfriend up in Canada where I grew up. I already told you that. And she said, do you remember so-and-so? Okay, she didn't know that I had been molested. She said, do you remember so-and-so? And I went, yes. She said, well, he just had a massive stroke. He is totally paralyzed on one side of his body and can't say word 1. 6 months ago, I would have rejoiced. I would have said, you know, what goes around comes around. But this time I didn't. I genuinely felt pity for the person. I thought, you know, that's an awful thing to have happen to anyone, regardless of what they had done. But that only comes if you go through type 2 forgiveness. So how do we forgive? Well, as I said, under duress, when I got hungry enough, I forgave little Farquhar. You know, we forgive at level 1. We never get to the emotional level. So I had to come up with something that would help me get past this. You know, Scripture says that when God forgives, He buries what He forgives where? in the depths of the sea, and what does he then do? He doesn't remember it anymore. We always remember as human beings. We are not capable of forgetting, but we can learn the lesson, whatever lesson needs to be learned, and we can go on as a survivor. But I needed a metaphor to bury this stuff. And because I have really expensive taste on a minister's budget, I like to do things in my brain because cost is no object. So I decided I was going to create this wonderful cemetery, which I did. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I wish I could pull a DVD out of my head and show it to you. I mean, it's just marvelous. I've got gold-plated bridges, and I've got all kinds of marvelous shrubbery, and I imported Carrara marble from Italy, and I've got all of these beautiful carvings. So every time I forgave something, I'd go into the cemetery, dig it whole, bury it, and then put this beautiful carved statue on it. And I also got a little brass plate, and I put who I forgave and what they did and the date, and I was really proud of myself. Until I realized that I found myself back in the cemetery when somebody who had already, I thought, done me dirt, did it again. I went and I could find exactly where I buried it the first time, and I just dug it up. Okay, that's not going to work. So, had to take all the brass plaques off. I still have all the statuary there, but they aren't marking anything. So now when I bury something, I can't go back and dig it up. That's the best way that I know of for me to forgive, as close as I can to the way God forgives. Now that doesn't work for some people. One man said to me, I don't like cemeteries. I'm not going to go in and dig anything up in the dirt. I said, all right, but you got to have the metaphor, because the brain works well with metaphors. It actually helps you work through things. So what are you going to do? Well, he says, you know, I live on the St. Lawrence River. He said, I could go down to the river and I could get myself a big, maple leaf, and I could dump on there all the things I was going to forgive and then float it off down the river. He says, I'll never see that leaf again. So I don't care what it is you do, but you need something to actually do this. I remember one lady we were working with who had a hard time with forgiving, and she was addicted to pie, P-I-E, and she had come to the Center for Health because she was 27 years old, shorter than I am, weighed 523 pounds. We had to take her in a double-wide wheelchair down to the cafeteria area and weigh her on the meat scales. So the metaphor we did for her, because she had a lot to forgive, and the first person she had to forgive was herself. She had to forgive herself for developing unhealthy habits that put her at 523 pounds. So her favorite pie was cherry. And pie was out for her because she was eating on average 2 pies a day. She'd done that for 10 years. So we had the chef bake a beautiful cherry pie. And we wheeled her out to the rose garden, and we dug a hole and we buried the pie so that her brain would understand that pie was dead and gone. And while we were at it, we buried a few other things that she needed to forgive. So whatever you need, get it. So reasons to forgive. You're actually forgiving for yourself, you know that. The other person doesn't even need to know about it. They can be dead because you're doing it for yourself. There were people that I needed to forgive who've already died, and I just wrote their name on a piece of paper and put it on the chair and forgave them like I would as if they were really alive. And here's the deal. A lot of people that you think injured you, and they might have, don't think they did anything. So if you said to them, I forgive you, they'd go, for what? Are you nuts? So it's not about them. It's about you. So it's the right thing to do because we all make mistakes. I know that's hard for some people to realize, but we all make mistakes. I forgive because I want to be forgiven. And that's a healthy selfishness. I want to be forgiven, and according to Scripture, I have to already have forgiven. To preserve my health, because I'm the one that's going to suffer if I don't forgive. Nothing's going to happen to the other person, at least maybe not in the foreseeable future. I'm the one that's going to pay the price in my health if I don't forgive. I want to keep my energy levels positive, which means I had to get rid of this enemy outpost in my brain because I'm staffing it and feeding the staff. That's a lot of energy. And bottom line, because it's all about me. In terms of forgiveness, it's about me. I want to be healthy. I want to live a long time. I want to be forgiven. Some people say, well, I keep thinking in my brain, I just hate so-and-so for what they did. You know, thoughts are just thoughts. That's all they are. And one of the few things that we can control in terms of brain function are our thoughts. You may not control every thought that pops into your brain, but you immediately decide, do you want to keep thinking that thought, or do you want to think a different thought? And if you want to think a different thought, then you need to change it. And your feelings always follow your thoughts. You can't have a feeling without first having a thought. So, if you say, I hate so-and-so and I refuse to forgive them, all right, then your brain is going to create a picture in your brain of what that means to you. If, on the other hand, you say, you know, I regret that happened, it shouldn't have happened in a perfect world, I hung on to it way too long, I'm choosing to forgive for the benefits that I receive, then things start changing in your life. Because whatever you choose, one or two, it's going to impact your health. It's probably going to impact your longevity as well. It's certainly going to impact your relationships. So here's the guidelines. Choose to forgive. Doesn't matter what happened, you can forgive. Choose to forgive at both decisional and emotional levels, and often that includes yourself first. You know, for years I had spent time and energy saying to myself, boy, what if I had done something different when I was 13? What if I hadn't done this? What if I'd done that instead? What if I'd driven with these people instead of with those people? And I spent way too much time wishing things that had been different. And at the age of 13, my brain wasn't beginning to be done yet. You know, most of us do the best we can at the time with what we know and our level of brain development. You know, your prefrontal cortex, where you make really finely weighted decisions, is not done until late 20s, maybe as late as 30. Anybody here under 30? Well, you're not clocking along with the full deck yet, so cut yourself a little slack. The problem is we make decisions before our brains are done, and then we spend a lifetime trying to undo them. So you need to forgive yourself. As a preacher's kid, I had lots of questions. I wondered, for example, how come Christ waited till he was 30 to start, quotes, his ministry on this earth? He wasted a whole lot of time. Do you realize that? If he'd started at 20, he'd had 13 years instead of 3. Well, that was the thinking of a brain that wasn't done yet. Because if the brain, and we believe it's been consistent, really that prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead is not developed until almost age 30. I think sometimes it takes longer for some people. I've met some 50-year-olds that I have questions about their brain, but anyway. If that part of the brain that lets you really evaluate what I should and shouldn't do and what is my best choice, if that's not done until almost 30, none of us are ever going to have to make the kind of choices Christ did. And his brain needed to be done. So I've had to go back and reassess. Maybe he knew what he was doing after all. So, bury what you forgive in a cemetery or float it down the river or do something else, send it off to Mars in a rocket, I don't care. But you need a metaphor so you can actually, in your mind, picture what's happening. Learn from what you forgave. We can always learn something. And stop rehearsing what you forgave. You know, I don't mind telling you I was molested at 13, but I'm not rehearsing anything about it. It's just a fact. And believe me, I can tell you I was molested now, and I feel no emotion whatsoever. It's just a fact. I broke my arm when I was 11. I can tell you that too. No emotion. It's healed and done with. And the whole point of his research is so that we can prosper in all things and be in good health. So I challenge you to spend some time thinking about all your injuries. Half the time they weren't that bad. We just chose to feel sorry for ourselves and think it was really horrible. Nevertheless, even if it was horrible, think about it and ask yourself, have I forgiven at step 1 and step 2? And if you haven't, I really encourage you to get serious about it. And then just watch yourself prosper and be in better health. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. For those of you who didn't get to hear the first part of the announcement, we get to hear Dr. Taylor again tomorrow morning. Now, it's during our first service, so that starts at 8:30. And if you want to stay for the whole day, we also then have Pastor Justin preaching for our second service. Then we'll provide you lunch. And then we have an Alive program, which is run by the youth, but Dr. Taylor will be taking the talk during the Alive program. So we get to hear you again twice tomorrow. And so the Alive program will be 2:30 starting. Is that right? 2:30 starting? I got to check my times now. Wow. All right. I'm even too shy to repeat that. So you want to say it a bit louder?
You know, we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about health and nutrition and blah, 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 blah. Nobody, how come you're backing up? I don't spit when I talk. We don't talk about sexuality. And that puts all of our young people at risk. We've got some wonderful new research about sexuality. So that's what I'm talking about tomorrow. So if you don't want to hear, don't come.
So is that what about in the morning service? Is that in the morning service?
No, that's tomorrow afternoon.
All right. What about the morning service? Do you know?
Do I know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, ye of little faith.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, you know.
You couldn't put me on the spot.
No, I don't think I could, actually.
It would be my choice to be on the spot. We've got new research about the brain and spirituality, and it's really exciting.
So that's tomorrow morning?
That's tomorrow morning,
Wow.
because it looks like the brain is not innately religious. I hate to tell you that because you're a pastor. Religion is a choice.
Well, brain's probably desperately wicked. Is that what you're going to say?
No, but the brain is innately spiritual.
Okay.
It's just that they don't always come together, religion and spirituality, and it would be really nice if they did.
But what does that even mean? Or are you going to tell us tomorrow? What does it mean when the brain is spiritual, innately spiritual? What does that mean? Give us a little hint.
Come in the morning.
All right, there we go. Come in the morning. I'm going to be here. And Monday night.
Monday night's going to be fun. We got new research. Where were you? Didn't I already tell you this?
Oh, I was late.
You were late.
Yeah.
I noticed.
I was late.
I didn't know who you were, but Monday night is the new research on how differently the male and the female brains are wired. And that's really fun. I did. See, I'm not crazy.
My brain is just really not working.
I know.
well.
The traffic really did a number on you.
Dr. Taylor, thank you so much.